Good afternoon, and welcome to the first ever Richardson Law Office's Lunch with a Lawyer. I've sent out some invitations to all the followers on the Law Office Facebook page, and what we're going to talk about today, and the first of what will hopefully be many lunches with a lawyer, many topics, but this being January 3rd, 2017, I thought a good first topic for these live broadcasts would be New Year's resolutions. Now, since I am an attorney, there's a lot of work with people that are in financial difficulty, whether it be bankruptcy or collection defense, working things out with creditors, student loan problems, things like that. I thought some tips and ideas on New Year's resolutions having to do with your financial situation would be a good topic. Other topics may also touch upon financial issues, or they may relate to many different areas of my practice. But today we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions and some ideas for you. Now, what a lot of people do, they start out in the beginning of the year and they make these resolutions, and usually by February or March, they fall away and kind of fall apart because they make resolutions that are very broad without any specific thought to how to implement them, how they're going to bring about that resolution, and there's no way to measure it. So they don't know whether it's succeeding or not, and it can be very overwhelming. So what I'm going to talk about is, your New Year's resolution may be, in 2017, I'm going to clean up my financial situation, get on better financial track, budget myself, discipline myself in my spending, save money, that sort of thing. A very overall and very noble and a very good goal, but how do you bring that about? So what I'm going to do today is talk about 6 sort of sub-resolutions, breaking that down a little bit, to talk about how you would, concrete steps that you can take to bring about that goal. If your overall resolution is to have a better financial situation by the end of 2017, then these resolutions I'm going to talk about, and these tips are going to be about how you bring that about and how you measure success. So the first resolution that I would recommend is that you're going to make a budget. That's the first thing you do. And most Americans don't have a budget, so it's not unusual. If you don't have one, you're in broad company. But it's good to have a budget and have an idea of where your spending is. Okay. Once you have that, it's obviously going to be easier to clarify your goals in having a better financial future in 2017 if you have a budget. So this can be done in different ways. You can have a spreadsheet. You can use a program like Quicken, or a program I'm going to be talking about a little bit later in the show called EveryDollar. But you need to make that budget. Also, to help out, if you want, you can send me an email to steve@richardsonlawoffices.com, and I will send you a budget sheet that I use in my practice that'll help you gather these numbers together. Now, the first step in budgeting is to know exactly how much money is coming into the household. What is your income? And it's January, and this is a great time to do it, especially if your income fluctuates. If you're a salaried employee and your paychecks are always the same, you don't get bonuses, you don't get overtime, your income does not vary with hours worked, then basically take your paycheck. If you're paid weekly, then you just multiply by 52 and divide by 12. If you're paid bi-weekly, then obviously multiply by 26 and divide by 12, or assuming you've been working all of 2016 in that job, and you can get an idea of what your monthly income is. Because there are not for exactly 4 weeks in a month. So you want to make sure you have an accurate figure. If your income does fluctuate, then take the last paycheck for 2016, all right, and take a look at the year-to-date figure for net. Now, and do that for every source of income in the household. So your job, your spouse's job, any second job you may have, part-time job, that sort of thing. But take all the paychecks for that job. Take a look at the year-to-date figure for the net. If you've worked there all of 2016, and that's easy, just divide by 12, and that will get you the average monthly net that you had coming in 2016, and that's a good starting point. If you worked fewer months than that, then obviously divide by the total months that you worked there to get an average. So then that gives you the income. Now you know what pool of money you're spending on expenses every month. And then the next thing you need to do is determine your expenses. Now some of them would be easy. They are your fixed expenses, your rent or mortgage, your car payment, any kind of loan payment, your cable bill, your cell phone bill, assuming that doesn't vary and you know roughly what you're going to be spending, what you spend on that. The next thing is that you need to look at are your variable monthly expenses. Things like your gas and electric bill, your water bill, how much you spend on food, gasoline, money for entertainment, just going out and doing things, which is often a big money leak. But look at what you spend on that, and go through your checkbook register, go through your credit card bills, and look for what you're spending in these areas. Including real estate taxes. It could also be in there. You pay those quarterly, but if they're not escrowed with your mortgage, you need to look at that and figure out what you're paying monthly for that. Then finally, you have expenses that vary, that you don't always spend money on every month. Things like clothing, insurance premiums for your car insurance, or if it's not escrowed, your homeowner's insurance. Home maintenance, medical bills, things like that. So you need to add up, go through all your records, add up the total amount you spent in those categories, and then divide by 12. And that'll tell you what you spend in a month on those amounts. So that's the first resolution. You go through that, and you figure out what your income is and what you're spending. And you have a much better idea where you are. Now, the next step is to say, okay, take the net income, total net income, subtract the total expenses, and see what that resulting number is. Is it a positive number or is it a negative number? And if since our resolution here is to have a better 2017 financially, you want to make that number as large as possible. Okay? You want to make the money left over at the end of the month, what's called the disposable income, as large as possible. You want to maximize your spare money. Now, are you deficit spending, or you do have some money left over, but it's pretty thin? You want to try and maximize that. Now, the budgeting that can often lead to an aha moment where you realize, wow, I didn't know I've been spending that much. Geez, I've got to cut back. But until you go through this exercise, you're probably not going to know that. So it's good to find out, say, hey, we're eating out quite a bit. Maybe we can cut back on the pizza deliveries or the dinners out or whatever you do in entertainment, that maybe you need to scale back a bit to save money. Or you may just need to, you tighten your belt on those leaks, those money leaks. Like I said, the entertainment is often a big money leak. So then, after you've done that, look at where you can trim back, reevaluate some things. Take a look at the cable bill. If you're not still committed to a particular contract and you're looking at what you've got, look at maybe switching providers for a lower bill, or cutting back on maybe some premium channels and things like that. There's ways you can negotiate that. Look at the cable bill. Look at your cell phone plan. I've talked to clients that, look at it, they have two phones and they're paying an enormous amount of money on their cable plan. And just knowing these days what the cable providers are charging, and it's all getting very competitive, look to see whether you might be able to get into a better plan and save some money. Maybe for your utilities, look to lower the thermostat in winter, or raise it in summer to cut back a little bit, or maybe get one of those smart thermostats that are being made today, programmable, and they learn. Things like a Nest thermostat can save you some money on your gas and electric bill, cut down on some water usage, things like that. And talk to an insurance agent about your insurance bill. Look at what your auto insurance is, what your homeowner's insurance is. If you own your home, you might be able to negotiate an umbrella policy where you make a package deal for your homeowners and auto, which could often save you a significant amount of money on your overall premiums. So talk to an insurance broker about that. So those are ways to keep from deficit spending by belt tightening on some money leaks, or just looking for ways to cut back as best you can and reprioritize your life a little bit, maybe, on what you spend money on. But once you've maximized that amount of money, that's your second resolution. We can go on to the third resolution, and that is to make better use of that disposable income. So now you have, hopefully, after you've done this, more money available to you. What do you do with it, and in what order, particularly? First thing I would recommend, and others have recommended, financial people on the internet as you read it, that you create an emergency fund, maybe about $1,000 or so, and put money towards that every month, this emergency fund, until it reaches $1,000, because you're going to have unexpected expenses, and you don't want those expenses to derail you, and you want to have some money left over for that. You also may have some crimps in the cash flow, where, for example, with things like clothing or annual insurance premiums or things that fall due, you may not have set aside enough money every month for that to pay the full bill because you hasn't built up enough in your account. But if you have that $1,000 sitting there, you can take that money to smooth out the cash flow, and then when you get the money later in the year, as you set it aside, you can put that back into savings, and that can provide a little elasticity to your budget by having that $1,000. Next, it's okay to spend money on yourself. Treat yourself a little bit every once in a while. Say, hey, you've gone on for 3-4 months. It's doing well. You've disciplined yourself. Give yourself a little treat and have some money aside for that. It'll reinforce the good behavior and make it more likely that you'll stick to it. And continue on the budget. You don't fall off the wagon, as it were, with your New Year's resolution, because there's a little reward in it for you. So it's okay to set a little money aside after you have your emergency fund for treats, that sort of thing. Next thing is, if you have a lot of debt, credit card debts and medical bills, look to paying that off. There are different. You can negotiate, monthly payments over a 3-year plan with all of your creditors, or you can do what is often referred to as the snowball method, which is a method in which you take a certain amount of money every month and you pay off. You start with the smallest debts and you just pay those off. And then as they start getting larger and larger, and maybe beyond the amount of money you have per month to set aside for it, put monthly payments towards the next largest bill. And then when that's paid, the next largest bill. And the money just sort of snowballs as you're paying down the debt. So pay down your debt. That again gets you in a much better financial situation and can often help you with your credit rating. Next, in addition to an emergency fund of $1,000, set aside 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses. This can help in the event of a job loss or illness or things like that where you're not working and the money's not coming in. Having 3 to 6 months worth of expenses can help cushion you and prevent disaster going forward. So, build up that fund of money. As I said, 3 to 6 months worth of monthly expenses. And you have your budget now, you know what those monthly expenses are. So that can help. And then, you know what? Someday you're going to want to retire. And that's often one of the goals of people. Hey, to get in better financial shape, start paying myself next and planning for retirement. At this point, you already have your $1,000 emergency fund. You've paid down your debt. You've insured against interruption in your income, and start setting money aside towards retirement. Maybe about 10-15% of your income. Talk to a financial planner on it as far as what to do exactly. But the next step should be setting aside money for retirement. After that, do you have kids? Well, if you have kids, they're going to want to go to college, and I can tell you from the student loan bills I see people have in my student loan practice, anything you do for your kids or yourself, and creating a college fund, maybe an educational IRA, something like that. There might be some tax benefits to that. Talk to a tax planner. That can help your children with their education so they don't have to borrow as much, and set that aside. And finally, you can look, if you have a mortgage, maybe paying down your mortgage. You're already investing in your retirement. You hopefully have a portfolio of some sort. Then at that point, maybe pay down your mortgage a little bit. So to the point where maybe you finish paying off your mortgage at about the time you retire. That can be a good goal. So those are some ideas and tips on what to do with that disposable income once you have it, once you've disciplined yourself for positive cash flow. And resolution number 4 is keep on top of your spending. Keep on top of things. This is not a set it and forget it situation, okay? Where you say, okay, I've got my budget, I figured it out, and I can just go ahead and pay bills and everything's fine, and I'm going for it and I'm okay because I have a budget. Well, no. Your budget is your best estimate based on the previous years of spending. Your budget now is, we talked about using 2016 figures, but you got to keep track of it. It's the only way to remain disciplined. Look every month, see how much money you're spending on food, on gasoline, things like that. Are you still within budget? There are several credit cards now that, through their account website, can provide you with a breakdown of what you spend the money on. My wife and I have a Discover card. And Discover gives you the ability to look and say, okay, this is how much you spend at supermarkets. This is how much you spend on gasoline. This is how much you spend at home improvement places. So it breaks it down for you. It makes it easier. And just look every month how much you're spending on those categories. And make sure that you're still on track. Because if you don't do it, and say 6, 7, 8 months down the road you look at it, and you might be behind the 8 ball again because you weren't paying attention. But if you start seeing a problem because you're looking at it every month, or at the very least every quarter, but really every month, you can see whether you're going off the rails, and you can make a course correction because you have the time and you don't get yourself into a hole again. So your 4th New Year's resolution has to be keeping on top of this. Now, again, you can use a spreadsheet. You can use a financial program like Quicken. There's an online site manager called Mint.com if you're comfortable with that. And there's also a program, and I've reviewed this in my Financial Freedom podcast. It's something called EveryDollar. You go to everydollar.com, check it out. You set up an account, and then through your smartphone or the web interface, you create a budget. You go through and you did the exercise I did. You have all those numbers written down from when you did your budget, and you plug it in. This is my January budget. Then February comes in. This is my February budget. And you budget your income, based on the calculations you did, and you budget your expenses. And the beauty of that is because it has a smartphone app, you go to the supermarket, right? And you pay for the supermarket, you pay for the food and everything, and then you take out your smartphone and you put in the total from that register receipt of what you spent on food that day. And it keeps track of it for you. And at the end of the month, it tells you, this is how much you spent, and this is how much came in, and this is how you're doing. And by doing it every time in little increments, every time you pay for something, you put it into EveryDollar, then this helps you stay on track. Now, you can, it's expenses, you can put in the date that you paid the bill, the amount of money, what it was for, the budget category for that expense. Now, EveryDollar is on what's called the freemium business model, which is there's a free version, and if you want extra features, then there's a fee for that. The free version of EveryDollar allows you to have unlimited budgets. There's an app for your phone. And we talked about the debt snowball method of repayment. It actually helps you with debt repayment using the snowball method I described. Now, if you want more features than that, the premium version, the pay version, can connect your bank account with your budget. It can track bank accounts and credit cards, which helps you with data entry on all this information. You don't have to do it all manually. And it also provides some product support. So really, as far as resolution number 4 goes, I would seriously look into a product like EveryDollar to help you do that. Number 5 is you want to be able to measure it. You have to be able to measure success, and that you need to break it down. Of course, we've broken down the overall goal of a better financial future into 2017 into these 4 resolutions I talked about. But how do you know if you've succeeded? How do you know if you've accomplished what you set out to accomplish here in January? Well, set a goal, okay? I want to be able to, at an achievable goal, something that isn't so insurmountable. Don't overreach. Don't shoot for the sky. Do something that you know you're going to be able to accomplish, because, hey, say you accomplish that goal in June or July. Well, maybe up your goal. You'll be able to do more and pat yourself on the back. You reached the goal that you set in January. So maybe your goal is to create that $1,000 emergency fund. Set aside some money for at least 3 to 6 months of expenses. Sue, how you doing? Just joined us. Thanks for joining in. You'll be able to look at this. It's going to be saved to my Facebook page at facebook.com/Richardson Law Offices. So if you want to, if you haven't had a chance to join us, or you joined us late, you can go back and take a look at that. So thanks for joining us, Sue. Again, we were talking about measuring goals. So you say, well, I got that $1,000. I want to get at least $1,000 into that emergency fund. I want to get that. I want to pay down at least 25% of my debt. But start that, and so you're working towards your goal, and you know whether you've succeeded. And the last resolution is to learn more about finances. Okay. I've given you some tips here, but there are a lot of things you can learn about. There's some books, a couple books I can recommend. First of all, is a book called The Millionaire Next Door, and that's by Thomas Stanley and William Danko, D-A-N-K-O, and a great book to read. I've read it, and it's about a lot of what I talked about here: disciplining yourself in your spending, setting aside the money for retirement, things like that. And it also teaches you how to measure success. You know, are you on track for a good retirement? And the premise of the book is that most of the millionaires in this country, about 70%, you'd never know it. You could be living next door to them. They're millionaires, and you don't know it because they live a modest lifestyle, and they set aside that extra income, live below their means, to set aside for retirement. And the book also teaches you, again, how to measure success. Are you on track? Are you considered wealthy and on track to be the millionaire next door? The other book by Larry Winget is You're Broke Because You Want to Be. It's a lot more in your face. There's also a reality show that he does, but it's sort of the Gibbs smack, as it were, on the back of the head towards what you need to do to get a better financial future. So that's pretty much it for today's Lunch with a Lawyer. If you have any other questions, or you're viewing this later, be sure to leave a comment below on the video, or even better, hit the thumbs up, hit the love button. That'll help promote the show and get it out to more people. And if you have any ideas for a topic where you can have lunch with a lawyer and learn some more about the law or some other financial issues, that would be great. Let me know. But that's it for this episode. Now, I hope to have it also available on my YouTube channel. I'm working on doing that. That's at richardsonlawoffices.tv, in addition to here on Facebook, but we'll see how that goes. So that's it for now. These may be monthly, these may be bi-weekly. We're going to see how it goes, but at least once a month, we're going to have lunch with a lawyer on a different topic. So that's it. I got to get my lunch, and if you haven't already eaten yours, go out and grab it before you have to get back to work. And I'll see you next time.